If you're out shopping, you will find many items with the word organic on the label. In this context, organic is used to make a product sound more natural. In chemistry, however, organic has a different and more precise meaning. Originally, scientists used it when studying substances found in living things, the chemistry of organisms. Today, we say that organic chemistry is the study of carbon-based compounds, whether they're produced in nature or not. All living things are mostly made up of organic compounds like proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. We fuel our cars with organic compounds made from oil. Almost all medicines are organic compounds. And so are all the plastic materials and the synthetic fibers that we use in our clothes. Until the 1800s, organic compounds were thought to only occur naturally. Today, we create many organic substances in the laboratory and in factories. There are over 10 million compounds that we know of, and about 90% of them contain carbon. To understand how organic compounds are structured, we start by looking at a chain of carbon atoms surrounded by hydrogen atoms. This can be a straight chain, a branched chain, or even a loop. It is the length of the carbon chain that determines the name of the molecule. Here, for instance, is the compound pentane. The first part of the name, pent, comes from the length of the carbon chain. 5 carbons in a row always have the first name pent. The second part of the name tells us what is attached to the carbon atoms. If there are only hydrogen atoms, the name of the compound will end with ane, pentane. The last part of the name is like a surname, showing which family or class of compounds the organic molecule belongs to. If we replace one of the hydrogen atoms with another group of atoms, another functional group, the molecule gets a different surname. Like this substance, pentanol, which belongs to the family of alcohols. The name still starts with pent, since it has a chain of 5 carbon atoms. The ending anol is the family name of all the alcohols. Here's another member of the alcohol family, ethanol. Anol shows that it is an alcohol. The first part of the name, eth, shows that it has 2 carbon atoms in its carbon chain. When studying organic chemistry, you need to learn which first name corresponds to which number of carbon atoms, and also the family names of some of the classes of compounds. When you know these, you can put together any first name with any family name to get the complete name of the organic compound.
Let's also some exercise. Use the name of some substances as the basis for name norms all other organic substances. What do the names of all these substances end in? Alkanes and ANE. True or false, organic substances can only be formed in living creatures. True or false? It is not true because, for example, plastics, nylons, medicines, all are organic substances or organic compounds. Both pentane and pentanol contains 5 carbon atoms. That's true. About what percentage of the 10 million substances we know of all organic compounds? About 90% of the all organic compounds. What is the name of the simplest hydrocarbon with the 5 carbon atoms? pentane. Butane for butanoic acid. It's not simple. It is carboxylic acid. Alcohols, pentanol, ethanol, also one of the alcohol compounds. What is another name for organic chemistry? The chemistry of carbon compounds. Which class of substance does methanol belong to? Methanol, all, from the alcohol and its alcohols. The name of organic substance is based on some simple compounds. Which elements do these compounds? Which elements? Carbon and hydrogen, from the hydrocarbons. What was the older definition of organic substances? Older definition. Yes, the substance only found in organism. The simplest carbohydrate with 4 carbon atoms is called butane. The simplest alkane, this alkane with 4 carbon atoms is called the butane. What is the name of alcohol with 4 carbon atoms? The 4 carbon atoms is butanol. Which of these lists is correct? Methane, ethane, propane, butane, pentane, hexane. The first one is correct. Why is important to know the name of the compounds contain only carbon and hydrogen? Yes, those names are used as the basis of names of almost all organic compounds. And also these names tell us something about the number of carbon atoms in organic substances. Which alternative is the best? Describe of what organic chemistry is. The chemistry of compounds contain carbon. Which one? Third one. If propane, remember the propane has 3 carbon atoms, is put together with organic contain oxygen and hydrogen, and with single oxygen atom, what is the name of resulting molecule? It means contain the carboxyl group, and is propanoic acid. In which of these area is organic chemistry is important? When manufacturing plastic materials, medicines, weapons, no, or gold, no, and fuels. In the hydrocarbons,
Carbon is an element that can form millions of different compounds. Some of the simplest compounds only contain carbon and hydrogen, hydrocarbons. They can have different lengths, they can be straight or branched, or form rings. They give a lot of energy during combustion, so petrol, diesel, and aircraft fuel are mixtures of different hydrocarbons. The gas in gas stoves is composed of hydrocarbons, and so are most kinds of oil. The basis of all carbon compounds is that the carbon atom wants to form 4 bonds. This means that the simplest hydrocarbon is one carbon atom surrounded by 4 hydrogen atoms. That substance is called methane. The second hydrocarbon has 2 carbon atoms. They can be attached by a single bond, a double bond, or a triple bond. We'll keep it simple and stick to single bonds in this film. When the carbon atom has used one of its 4 available bonds, it has 3 left. That means there's room for a total of 6 hydrogen atoms in this hydrocarbon, ethane. We can continue adding carbon atoms, making the chain grow longer and longer. In order to name the hydrocarbons, you start by counting the carbon atoms. There is a list that shows which name corresponds to which length of chain. We've already seen the first 2 on the list, methane and ethane. The substances with 3 and 4 carbon atoms are called propane and butane. From 5 and upwards, we use the Greek words for the numbers. You might recognize some of them from other words. Pentane, penta meaning 5, hexane, heptane, octane, nonane, decane. You've noticed that the names of all these compounds end with ane. A collective name for all these hydrocarbons are alkanes. What about the number of hydrogen atoms? That's easy. You just have to make sure that each carbon atom has 4 bonds in total. The carbon atoms in the middle have used up 2 of their bonds to form the carbon chain. That means that they have room for 2 hydrogen atoms each. The carbon atoms at each end have only used 1 bond. They can hold 3 hydrogen atoms. Let's run through the list again with the first 10 alkanes, this time with the chemical formulae as well. The first 4 are methane, ethane, propane, and butane. After that, we count in Greek pentane, hexane, heptane, octane, nonane, and decane. Gas burners usually contain a mixture of propane and butane, while most cigarette lighters use pure butane. Methane gas is released when bio-waste decomposes in swamps and in puddles, and in cows' stomachs. It is the length of the carbon chain that determines the properties of the substance, like melting point and boiling point. The 4 shortest ones, methane, ethane, propane, and butane, are gases at room temperature and normal pressure. Chains with between 5 and 15 carbon atoms are liquids at room temperature, and longer chains than that are solids, like this octadecane molecule with 18 carbon atoms. What makes the hydrocarbons extra important is that their names are used to name many other organic compounds. Even if some of the hydrogen atoms are replaced with other atoms, these molecules will always have names that contain penta, since they have a chain of 5 carbon atoms. That's why it's a good thing to know the order by heart. Methane, ethane, propane, butane, pentane, hexane, heptane, octane, nonane, decane.
It's very important to memorize the first 10 members of alkanes. Let's take the sum question. What is the name of the smallest hydrocarbon? Smallest one, the hydrocarbon. As you know, it is the methane. Decane has twice as many carbon atoms as pentane. Decane has 10 carbon atoms, and remember, pentane has 5 and twice as many carbon atoms as pentane. True. How many bonds can the carbon atom form? It's very important, this we have to know. And each carbon atom forms 4 covalent bonds, and this bond can be single, double, or triple. But always is 4 bonds. What is the name of compound containing only carbon and hydrogen? Only carbon and hydrogen. They are hydrocarbons. What is the collective name for all hydrocarbons that only contain single bond? Remember, alkanes have just single bond, alkenes have single and double bond, and alkynes triple bond. Which of these contains three hydrocarbons that follow each other in the list? Methane, propane, butane, propane, butane, pentane. Which of these consists of hydrocarbons? Natural gas, remember, methane, ethane, propane, and butane, gasoline, sugar, carbohydrate, table salt. It is one of the natural salt inorganic compound. Which of these sorts from smallest to largest hydrocarbon? Methane, ethane, heptane, hexane, ethane, butane, propane, pentane, propane, pentane, heptane, decane. Which of these shapes are possible for hydrocarbons? Remember, they can be formed straight chain, branch chain, or in ring formation, carbon chain forming the ring, that's right. And it can be branch carbon chains. What hydrocarbon has three carbon atoms? Three. Remember, the first one methane, the second one is ethane, the third one is propane. Which of these hydrocarbons are located at room temperature? They are located at room temperature between 5 and 15, and pentane, decane, butane is gas, natural gas, nonadecane, 19 carbon atom, it is the solid. How many hydrogen atoms are there in ethane? Ethane, C2H6. When hydrocarbon burns, this combustion reaction, remember the combustion reaction is the common reaction for all organic compounds. The products always are water and carbon dioxide. What is the chemical formula for butane? Butane, one of the alkane, and remember the general formula of alkane is CN, H2N plus 2, butane with 4 carbon atom and C4H10. What is the collective name for all hydrocarbons that only contain single bonds? They are alkanes. Saturated and unsaturated hydrocarbon.
This is a compound containing only hydrogen and carbon, a hydrocarbon. The name of this hydrocarbon is ethane. The bond between the carbon atoms is a single bond. Each atom shares one electron with the other atom. The carbon atoms can also share 2 electrons each in a double bond. When there is a double bond in a hydrocarbon, it changes the ending of its name. Instead of ethane, this compound is called ethene. But it's not just the name that's different. Ethene has fewer hydrogen atoms. Why is that? Each carbon atom can form 4 bonds to other atoms. In ethane, each carbon atom has used one of its bonds in the carbon chain. That means it has 3 bond possibilities left. In ethane, each carbon atom bonds to 3 hydrogen atoms. In ethene, there are 2 bonds to the other carbon atom. This means that there's only room for 2 hydrogen atoms. Double bonds means that the number of other atoms attached to the carbon chain decreases. How are the properties of the hydrocarbon affected if there's a double bond instead of a single bond? The double bond is pretty unstable. The compound can easily add more atoms or groups of atoms. For instance, the ethene molecule can add a hydrogen molecule to form ethane. Those hydrocarbons that have the possibility of adding more atoms have a special name. They are unsaturated, meaning there's room for more. But ethane already has the maximum number of atoms bonded to each carbon atom. Ethane can't add more atoms. It is a saturated hydrocarbon. Let's look at a longer compound, hexane, with 6 carbon atoms. If we change it to hexene, it gets less stable. The double bond means that it is more likely to react with other substances. If there are 3 double bonds in the molecule, it gets even more unstable. But there is one exception. If we make a ring-shaped hydrocarbon with 6 carbon atoms and 3 double bonds, it will be much more stable than the straight molecule. This substance is called benzene. That the name ends in ene shows that it contains double bonds. It is an unsaturated compound. Despite that, the benzene ring is pretty stable, and it is a part of many compounds that are important in biology. So, hydrocarbons with only single bonds have names ending with ane, for example, butane. They are saturated and stable compounds. Hydrocarbons with double bonds have names ending with ene. They are unsaturated and unstable compounds. They have the ability to pick up more atoms. This makes them more reactive. Benzene is an exception. Despite having 3 double bonds, it is pretty stable.
This was some exercise. The first quiz to roll force carbon atom with the hydrocarbon with 3 carbon atom contain only single bond is called propane. What is the name of hydrocarbon with 3 carbon atom contain 1 double bond? What is the name of the hydrocarbon with 3 carbon atom contain 1 double bond? It is alkenes and propene. How many chemical bonds can the carbon atom form? Each carbon atoms form 4 covalent bonds. What is the name of hydrocarbon that contain double and triple bonds? They are unsaturated hydrocarbon. The compounds contain only carbon and hydrogen are called hydrocarbons. What is the form if the answer hydrocarbon butane pick up a hydrogen molecules form butane? Which of these properties describe hydrocarbon with double bond? The molecule can add more atoms, more hydrogens. They have fewer hydrogen atoms than hydrocarbon that only contain single bonds. They easily react with other substances. In which of these cases has carbon atom formed desired number of bonds? When it has double bond and 2 single bond, when it has 1 triple bond and 1 single bond,